Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of the Blacklist Season 10, Episode 13, The Sicilian Error of Color. We are ready. We have on our invisible stamp collecting hats here. We are ready to go. This was a really, really fun episode.
This was such a good episode. I have $200 for a Tiffany's lamp if somebody's selling that. Oh my goodness. No, this was such a good episode. It was so fun. I felt like I was on an adventure watching Reddington run out of that apartment with a saber in his hand. Oh my God, I almost fell out of my chair. I did not know that was coming up. I know that it's been in the promos. That's the same thing that they've just been showing every single time, but I hadn't seen it. So I was completely caught off guard by it. It was so funny.
I want to go to Reddington's garage sale so much. I want to be like the Patrick Star meme where he's like, I have $3. Like, what would that get me at the Reddington garage sale for $3? It feels like I would actually.
Tiffany's lamp.
Yeah, I feel like I would actually get a lot. We saw somebody like walking out with that saber at the garage sale as well. What did they end up paying for it?
Oh my goodness. Listen, this whole episode was just so good. I love episodes with Reddington where it's like he's on kind of a treasure hunt or an adventure. They've always been my favorite episodes.
I think this episode really just reminded us that the playfulness of Reddington is something that really is a treasure kind of in its own right. And like getting to see these eccentric characters, eccentric behavior. I mean, did we further along a lot of long-term things? That's a subject for debate. But you know what? If we're having fun along the way, doesn't that really end up being what matters?
Absolutely. This episode for me was a 10 out of 10. And the task force wasn't in it. And it was actually really strange because as it was going along, I'm like, man, this episode's so good. I'm right in there. I'm watching Reddington with his saber running down the street. It was at like the 30-minute mark where I was like, I haven't seen Wrestler or Dembe. Like the task force is just not involved. And I didn't notice. Which isn't great, but at the same time, I was like, this episode's so good.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that and, a lot more. But before we do go further, if you guys did not know, Jess and I have started up a Patreon. We have a link for that right in that description below. And we have a number of exclusive Blacklist videos over there. I mean, we're taking on a lot of big subjects, but this week in particular, our new video is all about end games. And we kind of talk through what could the end game be for a lot of these different characters, because, this is the final season. We gotta have a little bit of closure for everybody, right?
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone who has gone over and joined the Patreon and is part of the Blacklist discussions that we are having over there. Of course, we're going to continue to have reviews here, previews here, and all kinds of other good discussion going on for Blacklist and all the other shows that we're covering here. And you guys know that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Well, let's just pick up where you left off in talking about us not having certain people. I'm gonna put on a tinfoil hat here early.
Oh wow! Okay,
and talk a little bit about some of what I think is going on. So we have told this joke before, and it's not even really a joke because I think it's also true. I think they're making this show with paper clips and like various oddities that they have found at their own garage sale in terms of budget. So I think like a part of what's going on here is that if you don't have to have every series regular in every episode, you save money. And I also kind of feel like they might be shooting some episodes kind of sort of around the same time to kind of compact their schedule a little bit. And so this could kind of be why, we saw a ton of Dembe in the last episode. Didn't see, much of them this time. We didn't see as much Reddington. We got a lot of Reddington this time around. So maybe that's a little bit of what's going on here. And for it to be this 10th season, like, I'm not going to be too up in arms. They showed us in this episode that you can have a smaller budget and still have a lot of fun. You just got to be a little bit creative.
Absolutely. This episode was a lot of fun. And I think it's It's always nice to see James Spader giving me a laugh because he's usually in sort of these oddball characters that sometimes are a little smarmy or a little bit sort of on the criminal side or just super odd if you like watch Secretary or Crash. Like he's always in these types of roles that are a little more eccentric. He just plays them so well. So whenever I do get like these moments that are just so funny, it just, reminds me of the timing, the comedic timing that he has is just, it's perfect.
I think this episode just gives us a fun little window into who he is, but I think it raises some questions that we've talked about before in these videos, but in kind of a different way. Like the big thing that stuck out for me is the very end of this episode where we have just gone through the incredible garage sale of Reddington where, even C is having a little bit of fun with this, but then Cooper is there, Agnes shows up, and Cooper is just sort of like, Reddington, are you okay? And at first, he tries to kind of like dance around it and do his old sort of double speak and all that other sort of stuff. But then Cooper sort of circles back to it again, and Reddington responds by just sort of being like, I'm just having a bit of fun. Yeah, he's just trying to be like, this is no big deal. I'm giving away priceless valuables for very, very little money.
Yeah, I mean, he's super wealthy. So like he doesn't need money. So selling them off isn't for like, oh, I need to finance something. I need more money. He's fine. He could live 10 lifetimes and he'll be fine. Really, it did sort of feel like he was having a bit of fun. And that's part of it. Yeah. Obviously, we'll get to the stamp and everything that was going on with Kathleen Sutton and all of that. But there was these moments like when he sold that Tiffany's lamp for $200 where he was just like, yeah, this could be a really exciting thing for this person that if she ever discovers what she actually has, it'd be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Here's this great story that I have to tell. He's sharing the same stories that he has, that he's been able to tell of these like incredible moments and things that happen to him that he's now giving those types of stories to other people. And I know Theo's kind of like, well, what if she never finds out? He's like, just find out. Maybe someone else will find out. Maybe she'll gift it down. She'll sell it to someone. Somebody along the line is going to figure out what that is.
All of this is so sweet and so lovely and inspiring. And now I have to come and be the Lord of Darkness and make everybody sad on the other side of this.
Oh, all right.
Here's the thing is that we've talked in these videos about if Reddington is dying. And I may be reading a lot into it with Cooper's "Are you okay?" at the end of this episode, but it felt to me very specific where he's just sort of like, why are you selling off all of your earthly possessions sort of on the cheap? And this may just be because I'm sort of inhabiting this space a lot this season with a lot of his behavior, but it did, of course, like all the wheels turn in my head, but it also it kind of created this situation where I started arguing with myself over it, where I was just like, okay, I've been saying I think Reddington is dying. I think that's probably the way this show is going to end. But I was sort of like, now that I'm really thinking about it, when Reddington was sick in season 8, like we saw it. We're not actually seeing any evidence that he is sick. And yeah, it's possible they're just keeping it from us, but why would they then keep it from us?
I mean, is he dying? I mean, I'm not sure anymore of that's really where it's going. Like he is clearly paring his life down, but for what reason?
It's a hard thing to sort of get around, but I think, at this point, the promos have hinted, he's trying to live like he's dying. All of this evidence could be compiled, but if we're just to take it at face value, this is a guy who he wants to have a good time. He wants to be around some people that he cares a lot about and tell some interesting stories. Because if we're going to get into the Sicilian Error of Color here for a moment, everything about this stamp I have learned either watching this episode or researching it because of this episode. Like I'm like at history class, but I'm actually having a good time with it.
What was really interesting about this garage sale that he was having here is that before it came about, he had this conversation with Sia where she was just like, he was like, "Come on in, I'll make you frittatas. We'll
Yeah.
chat about what it is you're looking for." And she's like, "Oh, I'm looking for answers. I want to know, you know, Mira's not my biological mother. How did that work? Like, why wouldn't she just tell me? Like, I feel, kind of betrayed that she wouldn't just tell me that. Like, it would have been fine. And how did we get here, sort of thing." And then all of a sudden, this garage sale shows up where Kathleen Sutton also shows up, who is connected with her late husband to Mira and a whole bunch of stuff that was happening in the past. And then he gives her this check from Kathleen Sutton where, Sia's just like, "Who are you? What is this about?" sort of thing. I'm just like, did you create this whole garage sale to have a bit of fun, but to also have a way to give this to Sia? I mean, Kathleen Sutton was very specifically contacted for this stamp to show up. It's obviously not a coincidence. So, like, Reddington, why can't you just tell people what you know? Why is it always got to be like, time for adventure?
I think it's probably like two different things. I mean, I think number one, he just legitimately enjoys a good romp. So I think he likes to toy around and do this sort of stuff. But I think it also is, he knows that actions speak louder than words. And I think, especially somebody like Sia, because Sia doesn't know him extremely well compared to the other people on the task force. I mean, maybe he is just like, it's one thing for me to sort of tell you what I know. It's another thing altogether for me to sort of be like, here is Kathleen Sutton. I'm going to make sure that I discount everything at this garage sale so it's not unreasonable or unrealistic that I'm going to only charge $2,000 for the Sicilian Error of Color. And I'm going to make sure 100% that she buys this so that I have a check that I can present to you, and then you can go on your way, and you will know that there is sort of a genuine nature to all of this. You will ask these questions for yourself, so there's not as much responsibility on me. You don't have to question, do I trust Reddington or not? Like, he's really brilliant. Like, I know we already know all of this 10 seasons in, but it is still the way in which he thinks. I don't want to think like a criminal, but I wish I thought a little bit more like him sometimes. I'm just going to say that.
I think one of the other things for Reddington is he doesn't always want to be responsible for delivering the bad news. And that I think part of him feels like it's not his story to tell. And we saw some of that in this episode, like the girl with the Tiffany's lamp, that's going to be her story to tell, of how she came across this lamp for $200 sort of thing. That I think for Reddington, he's like, this isn't my story to tell. I'm not really involved in it. There are players that are involved in it, and it is their secrets to either tell or not tell. It's not mine. And I think that that's really where he's going with this. Yeah, he could just tell her, but at the same time, he's like, I'm not really involved.
And I think the Sia mystery itself is kind of interesting because this is the final season, so there is this part of me that's just like, okay, how much do I really care about finding out who Sia's biological parents are?
I care so much now. Like, it's so weird. Like, at the beginning of the season, I was just like, what a cool character. I really like her. She can be part of the task force. All this, stuff is happening with her. But I wasn't invested in her. I was just like, oh man, she's a great addition to the team. Like, I really like her energy. She's fun. She's funny. She can be serious. There's all these great things about her. But this episode, watching her with Reddington, going through all of this, really kind of figuring things out, I'm now completely invested.
I'm surprised by how invested I am. Like, there were a few episodes, like, over the past few weeks where she could have just been a fly on the wall. And I was just like, okay, I guess Sia is here. It's not really doing anything. But I think it's just her energy in this episode was just so fun, where she's just sort of like going along with all this stuff with Reddington, sort of being like, why did you bring me here and get me in the middle of a shootout? And then at the end of it, she's even like willing to go and play soccer with Agnes in the background. She's not I don't mean this as a complete burn on wrestler, maybe a partial burn, but it's just like she's not a stick in the mud. Like
No.
she'll actually kind of go with the flow on some things, and that makes her a little bit different. And if I'm just going to speak like broad strokes here as to what's probably going on with Mira in particular, it's just that if she's trying to protect Sia, which I think was probably her goal, you know, any parental figure, you want to protect the people you love. She probably just thought whatever this secret is, if Sia was to find out about it, it would not be good for her. It would be damaging to her health. So why am I ever going to say anything?
Yeah, I am invested now. I need to know what the secret is. So if this turns out like the Liz situation,
Oh
I don't
boy.
know how this show has done this to me again, where I'm invested in another like, why is this person adopted? Why didn't they say that she was adopted? Who are the biological parents? I
Yeah.
mean, we had this whole thing in the past with young Mira as an agent and with Nigel Sutton and everything that was going on with him, and where he ended up like kind of like, if you want to keep your secrets about Sia, you're going to help me pay these guys off,
Yeah.
get this money for me. Oh, we need more money. And it was interesting to sort of see it play out that Nigel knows there's something going on with Sia. Whatever it is, he's aware of it. And I mean, so is Mira's boss. I mean,
Yeah.
by the end of this episode, after Mira made this decision where she was just like, Nigel knows too much. It's going to end up really hurting me or hurting Sia. I'm just going to let him die in this operation, which was real cold. But I was just like, wow, okay, there's whatever this secret is, it's pretty deep that Mira is willing to do that to anyone, let alone her partner. I know that he was like, do this or else, but just
Yeah.
the same, they've been through a lot together. But I mean, her boss also knew about Sia. She was like, oh yeah, go home, take care of little Sia. I was just like, okay, so this wasn't like some operation where maybe she took this kid and just brought her home. Like, what is it? What is it? Just tell me.
I feel like Mira had to have crossed like a certain number of lines in order to get Sia and maybe broken certain rules, certain protocols. Like, I don't think she just like went into a room and went full John Wick on a number of people, took Sia and ran or anything like that. But I think it's got to be something that compromises her capacity as an agent to a certain extent for Nigel to even care about this, to think that he has leverage on her because, he knows that Mira cares about her job. But I think at the end of the day, there was mentioned again in this episode that Reddington does like so much research into everyone who was on the task force. And if I had to guess, he probably looked at this situation and was like, okay, so Mira is somebody who is willing to compromise probably the letter of the law here or there whenever it suits her. This is somebody I can work with. I don't need a room full of wrestlers who are going to be the model Boy Scout all the time. I got to be able to sort of float around here or there in the gray area.
All right, let's talk about Hudson. We're
Okay.
like,
All
over
right.
19 minutes into this video. So is he going to be the person that actually takes down the task force? Because, I mean, we're in the final season. Right now, Reddington's not really working with them. He's not really bringing anybody to them. They don't really have anything to do. He's wiped himself from their system. So what is the purpose of the task force right now? It's just kind of not functioning, right? So then we have Hudson who's like kind of looking into it, why are we funneling all this money in here? What is it? Digging deeper. I think there has to be the end goal at some point that the task force is just going to be dismantled, where, the agents will go on and do other things. Reddington's going to go off and do whatever he's going to do in his life if he's still alive. And that's feels like where we're headed. It's not going to just be like, oh, they're just going to continue on missions for, till the end of time, but you're not going to see it because we're not making any more episodes. Like, I think there's going to be some sort of tie up that's like, oh, yeah, there's more criminals, but, we're done right now.
The Hudson story is this is the part of the episode I'm just like, can we get back to the Reddington garage sale, please? It's just, this is the problem, is that we've gone over this. We've seen Robert Diaz, the president. We have Panabaker, who's a senator. It's just, unless there is something more about this Hudson character who we don't know about just yet, which is fully possible. This show loves to do the whole bait and switch and sort of surprise us later on. I need a legitimate reason to think that this guy is like a huge threat to actually stopping the task force once and for all, because it's just like the only things we've sort of learned about him are that he's clearly very ambitious to the point where he's showing up at this other senator dude's restaurant that's off the beaten path and all of that other sort of stuff. It's like, okay, good for you. You research some people, but that's like saying that nobody else in Congress is good enough to be able to do that. Like if I'm a congressman, I would want to think that I would actually put some time into my job. So I'm not sitting here and being like, anything about you, Hudson, at this point is actually special. I'm just not seeing it right now.
No, I feel like there needs to be more motivation than just like, there's money that's going in here and it could be allocated to other departments doing other things. Why don't I know? Like it doesn't feel deep enough. And I feel like we're going to, or at least hopefully, get something more of a reason why. Like even the other guys like, you know what? I'm in. Let's do it because I'm here for optics. You might not be, but I am. It's like, okay, well, Hudson's not even in it for optics. He's not trying to like, what is the purpose of this? Are you bored? You don't have enough to do?
I think the thing I'm trying to remind myself is that the Blacklist, especially in this current era, everything they're giving us is for a reason, even if we don't see it at the present. It's sort of like with Reddington and his whole building the second task force. You know, it was hard to see all the pieces of that in the early going, and there might be something similar going on with Hudson. There might be something similar going on with Reddington right now, where he's sort of like, Sia understanding who she really is actually important for what I'm trying to accomplish down the road, which is why I'm willing to go on this international adventure with sabers and stamps and all this other wonderful stuff. Like, you know, this is episode 13. Like, there's still a lot to go with this season, so yeah. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that it's going in the right direction.
I just hope that, you know, like I said, the task force very likely just needs to be shut down by the end of it because it is the final season. Everybody needs to go their separate ways.
Yeah.
I just hope that it's not this character who's just shown up like so recently that is the person who ends the task force. I wish that it was almost a decision with Reddington and Cooper, and it still might get there. There are still quite a few episodes left. That it was sort of an understanding between them where Reddington's like, listen, I have this blacklist, you know, there's like a handful of people left on it. Let's just knock those out. And then I don't have any more information to give you. So it's over at that point where Cooper be like, cool, okay, we did everything we could. We got everybody on your list. You don't have any more information. It naturally comes to an end.
Okay, guys, I just figured it out. This is a
here we
this
go.
is a real treat for everybody who's watching 20+ minutes into the video.
Thank you if you are.
I'm gonna unroll all the tinfoil. I'm just gonna.
Oh my.
Okay.
I'm just gonna have a little one because you used it all.
I know. Does anybody else think that our buddy here, Hudson, looks a little bit like Neville Townsend? Like, just think about that for a second. Just pause. I'm not saying they're the same person. Like, I'm not that crazy.
Oh, I see. You're talking like a brother or
I think they might be related. I think they do look a lot alike now that I'm really, really thinking about it. And
that's a lot of tinfoil you're wearing on that head.
I don't care. I'm just they never really paid off enough of Neville Townsend to my satisfaction. It's just sort of like, oh, he's dead now. That's fine. You know, I'm not going on the he's still alive thing. It's just, I think it would be way more interesting if this guy was connected to other people and this actor just so happens to look even just a teensy bit enough like Neville Townsend for my gears to kind of get going a little bit 20+ minutes into a video.
All right. I'm not sure, but you know, we'll roll with it. You may have a big, you know, W on the way, or maybe it's not related. We shall see. We'll see. You never know. You never know.
I feel like I'm wrong, but you know what? That's fine. All right, we'll wrap this video up now, but be sure to check out that Patreon. We have a link in the description, and thank you everyone who has joined our Patreon so far. And also, we will have a preview coming up in a couple of days for episode 14. It's one of my favorite episode titles we've had in a very long time, so we hope you guys check that out, and we'll see you here next time.